Thanks for all the work that you've put into this. Right, and I apologise once more for not having looked at it earlier. Right, the next item is refining the committee structure. And since which time there have been some suggested amendments. Have we got the amended? It doesn't show. Okay, can you email it to everyone as well? It'll be easier if you can email it. So we'll get this emailed so everyone's got the actual wording in front of them. There haven't been lots of changes, but we'll need to scroll. But look, if I just start off by explaining the origin of this report, and I'll just sorry, I was just looking for the, oops, sorry, I had a very simple explanation. Right. Oh, I've got no.
I did take notes, but I don't know if you can read them.
Look, sorry, I did actually write down a note about this, and I might have gone into the media. See that the issues that they've raised have been covered. Sorry. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Gosh, where's yesterday's?
Does she want me to give the background?
Right.
Do you want Mary to give the background?
No.
Okay.
Right. So, where is it? Oh yes, so, right, people will recall when we did the long-term plan that, sorry, the annual plan, no, the long-term plan, which we concluded in June, there was the issue that had been raised by the external advisory group about the oversight of the capital program. And at the time, you noted my commitment to establishing a committee that would be focused on the $500 million capital program, ensuring it got the same high level of oversight as other aspects of council performance, in line with the recommendation of the external advisory group. So by adding a new terms of reference to the Finance and Performance Committee, making it a committee of the whole council and giving it power to act, it will replace one of the monthly council meetings and ensure in-depth oversight of the core critical projects while providing discipline around the rest of the programs. The benefit is pretty obvious, which is that all councillors will benefit from being involved not only in terms of the capital program but in terms of the terms of reference of finance and performance, which take over the balance of functions of the strategic capability committee, which means that the whole of the council is focused on the strategic capability of the council and are involved in all of the decisions around finance and performance and now oversight of the capital program. And so at the same time as doing this, we've taken the opportunity to make some other adjustments, discharging the Strategic Capability Committee, establishing a Chief Executive Performance and Employment Committee, because that's really the remaining function, and we did previously have one of those, so we'll have that again, and then making some delegations, which is partly also my desire to see decision making aligned with where it needs to be made, rather than coming back to council as a recommendation for a re-litigation after all of the people that have got the in-depth knowledge of the issue have made a recommendation. So so that's essentially what it is. It establishes, which I know Councillor Kewen's been working on for a long time, a working group on disability issues, reporting to Social Community Development and Housing Committee, but noting that ITI will be consulted on the terms of reference of the working group. Can you scroll up just a little bit further? And then there's a couple of changes that people wanted to make to committees that they were on, and we have and one thing that I've picked up, and the reason that I really want this through today is so that we can get the council the calendar of scheduled council meetings out, so that people can see what they have to cater for next year, but also enables others to look at meeting schedules as well. We do try and assist Councillor Kewen, for example, in terms of the DHB, and I think we've managed to retain that. I am inviting the community boards, though, to review their meeting schedules in light of the scheduled recess weeks, because I think it's really important that community boards think about not having community boards in the recess weeks, because it's not fair actually on the councillors in that regard who are unable to make alternative arrangements due to the commitments there. And I think it's popped up in the week which is Easter Monday, which is a statutory holiday, 3 days, Anzac Day, which is a statutory holiday, and then another meeting. We don't control OCHT, but they might want to look at their date, and so might Christchurch NZ. So, just saying. I'm happy to move it, and is anyone happy to second it?
I'm happy to second it.
Thank you, Andrew. You've worried me there for a minute. But now I'll open it up for questions, some of which will be answered by staff and some of which will be answered by me. Andrew, Jimmy, Mike, Pauline, Glenn, Yanni, Dion. Right.
Okay, two questions. Two questions, one of which relates to matters that I raised earlier, which have led to some of these amendments. So just a question for staff, and it's really just checking. There is nothing that was previously in the terms of reference for the Strategic Capability Committee which hasn't now landed in the terms of reference for either Finance and Performance or the Chief Executive and Employment Relations Committee. No, there's nothing that's fallen through the cracks.
No, that's correct. And so all the employment and Chief Executive performance related matters are in that committee, and the amended ones that we just checked there, so the amended terms of reference for finance and performance now reflect everything that was in strategic capability.
Thank you. And then my second question relates to the new Finance and Performance Committee, Committee of the Whole, with Councillor Manji as the chair, no deputy chair noted, just because it's got all councillors noted there as membership. I'm just confirming that I'm happy to continue in that role.
And actually, that was our mistake. We understood we were looking at the wrong clause in the legislation. So yes, you can actually appoint the deputy today for that. So okay. Sorry, that was just an oversight. We looked at the wrong clause and thought the committee had to appoint the deputy based on, I think it's section 26, but
Alice,
if you look
for
at
this meeting, it
section
might be good to get that
25,
clarified
the
today.
council can appoint it, so that could be an amendment where you could reconfirm the deputy chair today.
Yep.
Rather than the mover and seconder, they can just add it in there.
Yep.
Sorry? Yeah, sorry.
Well, I wasn't aware that there was an intention to change the chair.
No, there isn't.
No.
Wasn't any
Just stays the same.
intention. Yeah.
No, there was no intention to change either the chair or the deputy chair. So, but there is a question that I have around that, because of course it becomes a committee of the whole and replaces one of the council meetings. And the question is could the meeting still be live streamed even though it's not a council meeting? I mean, we obviously still have the budget for it because it is a because it would normally be a council meeting. I actually think it would be worth it because it is a change, and what I wouldn't want is for all of the finance and performance and capital review discussions to be not live streamed, because I think it would add value to people's understanding of our finances.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
I
considering
assumed
the
that it
amount
would
of
be live.
delegations that committee's going to have, I think it would be appropriate that it was live streamed.
Yes. Okay, so can we just resolve to live stream the meeting? So if we could pop that into one of the motions, it doesn't add anything to our budget because we already have budgeted it, and I just wanted to. It suddenly occurred to me that it's a committee and it may not be automatic. So if we could resolve that, yeah, just adopt the revised terms of reference for the yeah. And then just say, agree that the Finance and Performance Committee meeting as a committee of the whole of the council will be live streamed.
And actually, while you're typing, can you check that 4 says that the delegates' responsibilities, terms of reference as amended rather than in attachment A?
Right. Okay, Jimmy.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah. I remember last time the council meeting particular request the International Relations Working Group to transfer from the social and the community committee to the strategic and the cabinet committee. And also this working group has been revised, those terms of reference already. I suggest that whether it's under the paragraph 5, discharge the strategic cabinet committee, and then International Relations Working Group, because along this new structure, and report to the council directly. Whether just specify the one sentence.
So
because based on this structure is.
Can Mary answer the question?
So at the moment, if you look at the paper in 7.2, the diagram clearly identifies International Relations Working Party still there, reporting straight into council.
Yeah,
so there's no change. So no resolutions needed.
But before it's report to the strategic committee, but you discharge it, then just specify clearly. Put out clear.
No, it's that one.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it is a change.
Okay,
so
so
it's a change.
You need to revise, all the kind of
Otherwise, it would be finance and performance. So,
I wasn't aware that it reported in there. So we will make a resolution. So
well, we changed it because it was inappropriately going through social and community and housing. So, yeah.
So
it's a good point. If we could just agree that the International Relations Working Group will report directly to council.
Sorry.
Yep. Good.
My apologies.
Good.
About that.
Good spotting. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. At a recent community board meeting, a notice of motion to advocate to central government on national accessibility legislation was what failed, which was a little bit concerning. But I hope that with this task force, this disability issues task force, that they actually take that up and have a look into that in more detail and potentially advocate as well to or recommend to advocate to central government.
Can we just look at their terms of reference?
So their terms of reference aren't submitted because they'll be developed and reported through social.
Okay, can we go to the disability? It's now a working group, so go back. No, stop. Go back up. Yep. Keep going. Right there. So it's number 13. Request establish a disability working group to be noting that there will be consult on terms of reference. Well, you don't need to have of the working group, so take out that and just on the terms of reference. No, sorry, you don't need to add anything, just, yep, on the terms of reference. And then in brackets, which should include yeah, it's kind of like it's not advocacy, but it's kind of like consideration of the legislative framework for disability issues that impact on local government decisions. You know, so we're asking that the working group actually look at the legislative framework. Yeah, I mean, we've got a New Zealand disability strategy. We have a lot of legislation that covers disability, but I know that Aaron's been very keen to push the envelope as far as some of the minimum standards go, which are not international best practice.
So that was meant to be impact on local government, not impact on disability strategy. I think that's what the Mayor suggested. Yeah. Consider the legislative framework that impacts on local government. No. The legislative framework that impacts on disability issues in relation to the what should include in relation to local government matters. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to pick up on what Mike said. I get that, but I actually don't know where the legislative framework's up to, and I know it's quite disparate across different pieces of legislation, so that's something that the working group could consider.
And that's why you would only support something that you understood, because as a council, would we support a national standard that we didn't agree with? No. So, no, I understand why the resolution didn't pass, because I failed to understand its intent myself. So, but I think the underlying issue, I think people are very supportive of. So, yeah. Now I've got Pauline.
Yeah, just with the terms of reference for ITI, and with consideration of one of our top strategic priorities is climate change leadership, that we probably should include that in our terms of reference, that climate change...
So what we've done is to ask that when you're encouraging opportunities for citizenship, community participation and working in partnership with key agency, you consider the impact of climate change and its decisions relating to infrastructure.
And you would say and the environment, don't you?
But it actually,
yes, it does. And so the thing is that the climate change leadership sits with Innovation and Sustainability Committee, and they will come up with things. But we're asking you, when you consider water supply, stormwater, natural hazards, blah, 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 you have to consider the impact of climate change in your decisions relating to infrastructure.
So it'd be infrastructure and environment for that committee too, Leanne? Impact on infrastructure and environment.
So it's relating to...
well, why don't we just take out relating to infrastructure? Just consider the impact in its decisions.
Exactly, and it probably should be in all of the terms of reference, actually, because over the top.
Yeah. Hang on, I've got a speaking order. Yanni, Dion, Sarah.
Sorry, just so I'm clear. So, where committees aren't referenced in here, they're just staying the same, basically. So, just given that one of the rationales for this was addressing the high volume of reading committee and council time commitments for mayor and councillors.
No, it was doubling up.
Sorry, this is on page 278 and 279. Just wanted to check how you'd mapped the workload. Obviously, for those councillors who weren't involved in this process, it would be really good just to have some understanding of how you've mapped the workload across.
So that was reported at a briefing session to all councillors about the number of reports that were going through each committee and through the committee boards, and also the number of reports that were actually coming up to council having already been considered by finance.
So I guess it's more a question of the mayor. In terms of individual councillor workloads, there seems to be quite a disparity between the number of appointments.
How do you mean?
So
well, if you go through the number of councillors on X amount of committees, external boards, etc., there doesn't seem to be any focus on that or reflection on that.
Well, I mean, I've asked people whether they're comfortable with the workload, you know, and I've said that to people who want to move from one committee or add another committee. I've said, can you do the work? And I've had that assurance.
So sorry, and our work was more looking at the workflow and the number of reports that were actually reconsidered twice, and that's why we were particularly recommending delegations to finance and performance, because the amount of reports that go through there, and 80% have to get reconsidered by council.
Yeah, I was more interested in the fact that one of the reasons it's hard to get meeting times for hearings is because there's some calendars that is completely full, and there's others that aren't completely full. So how you address that is quite fundamental.
This will help.
Yeah, I don't see where that analysis has happened. Just the living wage, what committee does that come under?
So that will be under the employment.
Chief Executive and Employment. Chief Executive Performance and Employment.
Right, and that's not a delegated responsibility, that's something that will come back to us. Can we be just explicit about that? Because I thought that they could do a remuneration policy across council and our companies. That was my understanding of the Local Government Act changes.
That is part of a remuneration policy.
Right, so just my reading from the CEO employment one.
So those terms of reference have no delegations. They've got matters that they consider, but they haven't got any delegations.
Yeah, we never had a delegation on that.
So, I think it would be good just to clarify that, because I don't know how much we can say, but previously there was an information gap between the full council and that committee, so I just want to get that addressed if possible.
So if we change the very first sentence on that, the Chief Executive Performance and Employment Committee considers and reports to council on the following matters.
Yeah.
I think that would be good.
Yep.
And then are we able just to include living wage somewhere in there?
So remuneration and employment policy, including the living wage, down the bottom.
That would be good.
I hate that phrase.
And then just the other question I had was around cycleways. So it seems kind of odd that quite a huge expenditure, and I think we were told this morning that's not going to finance and performance, and yet that's a hugely significant amount of money. So what's the rationale behind that?
Finance and performance already get all the money stuff for that, and IT has the delegations for the decision making over the route selection and the design and that.
I understand that. So I just wanted to be clear then that the capital monitoring of that expenditure will still go to finance and performance as it's currently been doing.
Yes.
It's only the decision
no,
making
that's not changing
around it.
Yeah,
and that's the Strategic Capability Committee identified that will be reviewed over the next 6 months, but at the moment keeping the existing delegations where they land.
Yeah.
Right, and in terms of the other thing that seems to be a gap is, like if you take the capital program, did the Strategic Capability Committee actually consider actually delegating the local projects to the local community boards? Because that's been a huge source of frustration, and it seems like that's another area where we could actually do huge improvement around things under a certain value, just being able to get sorted at that local level.
So which one?
That's another stream of work that will be reported back up to you early in the new year. So the delegations, the relationship with community boards and the delegations to community boards is coming back early in the new year.
But we still do that on a case-by-case basis. We delegate lots of things to community boards.
Yep.
Now.
It's quite ad hoc. So,
yep.
You know, I just wondered whether, you know, a financial figure, threshold value of a project.
Not off the back of this report, no.
Right.
But we will be looking at that in the new year. Yep.
Okay. And then can I just ask that the development forum begins at 9:30 rather than 9, if possible?
The Central City Development Forum.
Yeah, of course.
Yep. It's usually in the afternoon.
Yeah, it is. And some are, but
yeah.
My view on this is that this is just a framework, and if there's minor sort of tinkerings, like literally half-hour mover of a meeting, we can do any time we want.
Well, and I think we're all aware of Yanni's requirements in that regard.
Yeah.
And I mean, it may well be that we want to again knock that back to a smaller group of people. You know, I'm in two minds as to whether the committee of the whole works for the development forum. So.
Right.
We'll just work through that issue.
And just a final question is, like, the Disability Issues Task Force, is that got
working
a resourcing
group now?
Working group. Has that got a resourcing requirement? Because, like, I guess, you know, it seems pretty clear that when we set up working parties, like the street workers one, you know, that's actually been quite a good model. And I'd like to see us do more of that, but I'm really also mindful of it's the resourcing of the organisation. For example, at the social and community one yesterday, the Healthy Food Action Plan, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's not being done. And whether we set up a working party to actually get action, is that a better way of doing it, where we identify a clear resource and ensure clear timeframes for things being done?
As you'll see from the paper, there is a desire to move to a more task force focused approach for that reason, to actually get a desired outcome, time limited, bang, and I think that people felt that with the disability issues matter, that we would rather see that as a working group, because it's going to have to report through more than one committee on different issues. So, but it will be resourced, yes.
So, but is there scope for other, like, should we be identifying now other working parties that we would like as councillors?
No.
Look,
as I've said, this is not the last word on the matter. It started off as simply the establishment of a committee to oversee the capital program. That led to a discussion about the importance of all councillors sitting around the table, having the degree of oversight around finance, performance and capital, and that's why we've made the decision, or making the decision around that. We added some other stuff to this. The disability one's been sitting on my desk for quite some time. Aaron's looking, it's about time, and you know, but it's never the end of the matter.
The issue is we can't just keep adding work to a resource that's currently not able to support the existing work program.
Yeah, but we
have to address that at some stage.
So that was part largely what led to the decision of not having finance and performance and a capital monitoring committee.
Yeah.
And actually combining them to one instead of having two committees.
And replacing a council meeting.
Replacing a council meeting. It's really about allowing time to meet and meet well, and also allowing the staff resources to serve one, which is a committee of the whole doing both rather than three separate bodies. So it was a resourcing issue.
And we did want to have a mechanism for disability issues to report across two committees. Right, Dion. Sarah?
Just back to Pauline's point earlier about, you know, all committees and everyone doing the climate change stuff. I think the thing that's different about what's gone to ITE is its decisions on stuff that's to do with the adaptation stuff as well as the mitigation, because we've got the resolution on the reports for climate change in our decision making, our carbon emissions. I'm just wondering if we have a timeline for our new reporting structure that's going to deal with that.
That should be ready to go with these new committees in the new year.
Great.
So we're hoping to have that all programmed in Info Council to be in line with these new committees.
Right. Glenn?
Thank you. Public excluded, can we look to build in some kind of PX filter? Because we're going to be dealing obviously with huge amounts of money. We've been criticised for not being as transparent as we could have been. Can we please find a way to get ahead of this now, so that when we have papers, we're going to be live streamed, the public's here, media's here, but we don't want to suddenly shut the meeting down after 5 minutes. So can we look to actually delineate, extract bits out of reports before we...
Yeah. Again, can we report back and suggest a process and how we're going to deal with that, rather than do it off the hop now? But we'll
we put in a good process now, which is requires councillors to consider the timing of the release of reports, and also the PX decision right at the beginning of the process. Good. But I don't think people should confuse the need for making decisions in a private space, a lack of commitment to transparency. There are a whole lot of perfectly valid reasons where you do need to take things offline, and then it's the question of releasing the information in a timely fashion.
Actually, one thing I've forgotten, entirely different matter, whether social community development could be involved with Aaron's new workforce. What is it?
It does.
Working.
It's Delta Force 1.
No, just over some of the life mark provisions and housing, etc. So
yes, I know, but it is reporting through social community.
Oh, right.
Yeah, community. Yeah, it reports to there.
Yeah, I know. I meant in the TOR stage, in terms of reference stage. So.
But it does report. I mean, you're going to set up the terms of reference, and you're on that committee. Yeah. So have your say there. All right. So we're all good. We're all good. Now we've got a mover and a seconder. Is there any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour.
One amendment. We need to have the employment subcommittee as amended. So number 7, or the terms of reference, we do need to note as amended. Terms of reference for the Chief Executive's Performance and Employment Committee.
Okay, establishes a Chief Executive Performance and Employment Committee and adopts the terms of reference as amended.
Yes, there's one should be further down about adopting.
Oh, sorry, well then it wasn't number 7, so...
Sorry, 15, my apologies, 15, so it should be as amended.
Attachment E.
Well then, why don't we just delete that now? Delete that one.
So it's sort of not delete it completely. Just put as amended.
Okay. Change it to as amended, and then delete the other bit that I've just told you to add into the wrong thing. Yeah.
Yes, you did get it.
No, don't. Right. Okay, I'll put the motion. Well, I got stopped by staff. I was about to put the motion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. It's carried. You're abstaining. Okay. Dion Swiggs and Jani Johansson abstain.